We got temporary lighting set up in here so we can work no matter what the weather is or sun conditions outside. You know, the job here, you wouldn't want to leave this as a permanent thing, as that's why it's called temporary lighting in here. So we really have to think about what the next step is. So I invited Gerry Lynch to come down from System 7 to kind of talk about home automation and lighting controls. Let's meet him. Hey, Gerry.
Hey,
how you doing?
Dave, how are you?
All righty. So you found the print here.
Yeah, just going over it again. And, you know, this is a lighting plan. Obviously, it's carefully thought out, but, you know, a lot of times we still see people leaving the switching logic to the electrician to figure out. But in a world where you're trying to get control of the lights, tie them to an iPad, control them remotely, have them come on schedules, it's best to have a lighting plan like this. And, you know, whether you use different colors like we have here to help understand different ways of laying out the switching, if you're going to have a control system, it's highly recommended that it starts with a plan for switching.
Good.
Now, how this plan looks can look several different ways depending on which lighting control system we go with. And I brought some samples to show you some of the different options. I guess the first thing I would say, Dave, is that you have to figure out which company you want to work with. Which product?
I did a little bit of research, and I really like the company called Lutron. You know, Pennsylvania, you know, family-run company over there, and their stuff just works. It's robust. Everybody I kind of polled and talked to about it, there's no problems with dropouts, or you know, you leave and then your wife's stuck with something that it doesn't work. So
I couldn't agree with you more. And Lutron, you know, they started in the industry by inventing the dimmer in the 1960s. So this year's their 55th year in business, I believe. And they really do own the lighting control market today. They have a full breadth of product. It's uber reliable, as you say. And installers, professional installers and designers like us really like to work with it. What I brought here today is a couple of different pieces to illustrate different ways to do a lighting control system. Think of it this way. There's kind of 3 levels you can go with lighting control. And the first thing you should try to figure out is which level is the right fit for my project. So at the highest end, when you have hundreds of lighting loads that you want to remotely locate. When I say remotely locating, I'm taking banks of switches and moving those out of the living space. And instead I'm replacing it with a keypad. This is a keypad where I have multiple buttons. Each one can launch what's called a scene. Then you can have dining, entertaining, cleaning up if you're in the kitchen. Once you've launched a scene, these 2 arrows here dim up or dim down the entire scene. So one scene can turn on 6 or 8 light loads at preset different levels. 40% dim here, 80% dim there, and then once you've launched a scene, you can raise or lower the whole scene. So in the highest end system that Lutron makes, we're dealing with hundreds of lighting loads that are hidden away. And a lot of times you'll see something like this. Looks kind of like a complicated piece. What this is a remote power module. So these land in a panel. The different size panels can hold 5 or 8 of these. Each one of these essentially dims 4 lighting loads.
Oh, okay.
So just think of it as 4 dimmers neatly remotely tucked into a panel. So this is the highest end system. When you step down from that, you end up with a system where every switch is a switch, and now instead of putting them in panels when we remotely locate them, we're just remotely locating switches. I like that system when you have a couple dozen switches to hide rather than a couple hundred. A step beneath that is the real do-it-yourselfer product, and that's called a caseta. And it's truly meant for do-it-yourselfer. It has a little hub which plugs into the internet, and this hub wirelessly communicates with the switches. The mid-tier system I mentioned is called Radio Raw 2. It too has a repeater, and this repeater here can communicate with the switches. Here's the difference between Raw 2 and caseta. Not just different sized bridges, but caseta is really do-it-yourselfer. The closest you can get to a keypad is a thing they call the Pico remote. Here it is as a handheld wireless remote. Here it is as in a wall-mounted keypad. The limitations on this are square footage and number of devices. So if you're going to have more than 50 devices, if you're over 1,500 square feet, you're going to start stretching the limits of this system. But with the Raw 2 system, I can go up to 256 devices.
Oh, yeah, there's a big difference.
I can add multiple repeaters, so a main repeater and auxiliary repeaters, and I can cover a lot more square footage. The other thing is, this keypad that you get with Radio Raw, you don't get with Caseta. You really only get the Pico remote.
Okay.
So what you have to do is, if you're working with a professional to advise you, let them chime in on this, but start thinking about, I want lighting control. I want it in which parts of the house. If I want the whole house, we start thinking, how big is the house? How many lighting loads do we have to deal with?
Right.
Then we pick the system, and then that system that we select kind of drives that lighting plan design.
Okay.
So we know, here's how to show home run loads, here's how to show remotely located switches, here's how to show local switches.
Gotcha. Well, you were saying, so, like right here that I'm looking here, 50, 256 roughly,
Correct.
or whatever the number was on there. What happens when
No
we
limit.
add shades,
Yeah.
and what happens when we add audio? Does that take away from, all of a sudden, now I'm down a lot lower?
Yeah, anything you add to the system is going
Thermostat?
to take up a zone. A thermostat is a zone, a shade is a zone, right, or load.
Okay.
So it's really 50 things, or 256 things.
Thanks.
And once you get over that, of course, the big system has no limits whatsoever.
Right, there you go.
So the other thing is, think about aesthetics, that this is great, but it's white, and that's fine for most homes, but when you get into the higher end systems, you have different size, different finish, whether it's be metal or glass, different colors, lots of aesthetic considerations too.
Right. If you want an architectural home, here's the product that will match. You have a unique wall or an accent wall.
Correct.
Why put white or brown or whatever the
We'll
basic
have
color?
biscuit in this room and black in that room and white in this room, so it just becomes part of the overall design.
Right. We've been working on the wiring, and we took some liberties on locations and some other things. I wanted to show you, Gerry, what we were thinking and see if that lines up with your plan or your envisionment. So in this case, what we've done is we've taken all those loads that would have been out there. Again, I don't want those bank of switches, never wanted it. So the idea, so in those locations, we just put a single gang box with the power. And over here, if we did dimmers or remote, but all the loads came over to here, we ran a line. So does this make sense, or is this too much work, or how would you do it?
No, this makes great sense. So essentially, what you've done is these banks of switches would have been in the living space.
Yes.
All right. So you've just remotely located them, but you did smartly run a whip, a wire, for power over to the location in the room. So we'll be able to put a keypad there and put the switches themselves back here. And so you'll accomplish one of the first and major goals of lighting control, which is to eliminate complexity. So you've got just a single keypad, simple controls. And let's take a look at that, and I can talk to you about some of the other benefits I think you'll enjoy as well. So this is where a keypad will go, and as I enter this room, instead of having 4 or more switches here and trying to remember which one does what, now I'll just have the top button on this keypad be room on. I think it's really important to talk about some of the green benefits of this too, right? So you've got the simplicity down, you've got the aesthetics by removing the banks of switches, but now that you have a control system in place, you'll be able to control it from your iPad. You'll be able to control it locally or remotely, so you can log in and turn your lights on and off. And it'll be very easy to put things on a schedule. So, and the schedule is dynamic. So you can say, turn off all the lights if I left any on at 9 a.m. every morning. So you leave the house, even if you forget to hit all off, it'll shut the lights off for you. Or, turn the outdoor lights on a half an hour before sunset. Basically it'll save the complexity of programming and allow you to have less lights on all the time. You come upstairs, you hit all off on the lower level, you don't leave a light on for days like I've done before in my old house. Right. So you're really going to save a lot of money. And then finally, when we set these scenes, I can set every light in here to dim or to max out at 90%. And you'll probably think that's perfectly bright enough. But by shaving 10% off the full on of the light, you're going to cut a huge amount from your electric use. So those are some of the side benefits I think that matter.
Right. In this house we want to do everything low energy, so of course it would probably be LED fixtures, or if not, compact floors. But if we decide to do like cable lighting or some of those aren't really up to that. What about halogen or tungsten carbide or any of those? Or?
It's a great segue. Let's talk about light fixtures, because that really matters when it comes to integration and compatibility with the control system.
Yeah, so Gerry, here's a perfect example of a lighting plan not matching lifestyle. In here originally was drawn for canned recessed lighting inside my thermal envelope. And, you know, this is really critical on here about insulation, everything. If I start putting 6 or 8, you know, recessed lighting, I really, you know, take away from that insulation factor. So on here, we're probably going to use a different way. We're thinking of a cable lighting system where we'll go across. You know, that could
Makes
be halogen, it could be something else. I don't know if they make LED and, you know, cable lighting or not yet, but, you know.
Dave, I'm not sure if the cable light is LED or low voltage, but LED is a very important area to think about. And let's take a look at some lights here that are going to be LED and talk about it.
Yeah, like right here, I have some recessed lighting in the kitchen.
Exactly.
This is the plan for that.
So inside of each of these recessed fixtures is a piece called a driver. And the driver, for lack of a better way to express it, takes the analog signal from a dimmer switch and converts it to digital language. And the tricky part is that there's a bunch of different types of drivers. Essentially, there's a bunch of different ways to dim LED lights. And therein lies the challenge. Whether it's a non-control system dimmer or a control system dimmer, there's a problem, or challenge, I should say, dimming LED. Okay. So what you need to do, and this is a coordination piece that a professional installer can help you with, is understand, okay, what is this light, what is the driver technology, and is it compatible, and how will it behave?
Does anybody do any testing to see if there's...
They do. Lutron, again, this is one reason they're a great resource. They have a huge test library, but you have to, they're not going to have tested everything, and sometimes they won't have tested every scenario. Okay. So they may test a fixture and say, it dims down to 5% or 1% or 10%, some of them, look out for those. You won't be happy with those. But it may also say, well, that was one fixture, but did they test 22 fixtures in one load, right? So there's different conditions that, that sometimes come into play. But the bigger trick is, you know, not the main market recessed lights that sell by the thousands. It's the small decorative lights that you see 1 or 2 of. Those will never be tested. Okay, so as one installer ourselves, we have set up a test lab in our office. So we literally have people bringing us fixtures, we plug them in, and we have all the different dimmers on the wall, and we can see how it dims.
Okay, that's a good test. So they know expectation beforehand or not? Or
absolutely. Not to be corny about it, but I think it's easier to control lights than expectations. So we try to study things before the walls close.
Right.
So that we know what we're going to get at the end.
Okay.
It's a major piece. But LED is driving cost savings.
So Gerry, this is what that keypad looks like. That's sharp. I like that.
It'll be backlit and thermally imprinted with the labels for as you'd like them to be, whether it be dining room, family room, entertaining.
You mean my wife can read it without her glasses on?
Absolutely. That's the idea.
Awesome.
But it gets better because you can always pull out your phone, log in, and control your lights that way too. So here we are in Connecticut at your home, but I'm logged into my office in Boston, and I can go and shut the lights off.
Oh wow! Here. Wow, you can see status and
if they were light blue, they'd be on. I can tell they're already off. So I have full access from anywhere, and I think you'll enjoy that part of it quite a bit.
Wow! Well, a segue, you have that out. Would a keypad be necessary or touchscreen in the facility? Just kind of asking on that.
I wouldn't say it's necessary. It's an option. So you can do everything with this keypad. I mean, you can even now mute your music from the keypad, control your shades, the lights. There's a lot you can do from the physical keypad. Right. But the iPad or the iOS device or the touchscreen is an overlay to it. So you'll get a lot more out of it. And you can, there's ways we can mount them on the wall above switches like a touchscreen, or a lot of people just carry them in their pocket. So lots of options.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Gerry. That was very informative. I appreciate it.
Back at the end and seeing you when it's done.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right. Hey, that was great information. You know, Gerry is really, in-depth knowledge about this home automation stuff, and me just learning enough to get in trouble with. And it was a nice education process on the 3 different families that this manufacturer Lutron has to offer here. So stay tuned. We'll get Gerry back when we move forward and we get near commissioning, and that'll be great. In our next episode, we're going to have the blower door test. We're going to have George Keefen of CES be down here, and he's going to go through. We've gone through all these technical little things on the walls, the extra insulation, the air infiltration, and now will be our preliminary blower door test, and see what kind of numbers. Make sure that we've insulated properly around windows and doors and things like that. So stay tuned, it'll be great.